Jordan, nice to see
Hi.
you. What got you into graphic design?
Oh wow.
Big education.
That's a good question to start with, really. So I've always kind of well, funnily enough, at school I actually wasn't very good at graphic design. I think I failed graphic design in school, in like primary school and not primary school, sorry, in high school. And then I actually went into university with the kind of idea of going more into like illustration and stuff. And kind of like along that path of illustration, I kind of wanted to more use illustration and apply it to different things,
Yeah.
which kind of then made me fall back in love with graphic design because it was the idea of like, oh, I'd create a logo and then be able to illustrate something to go along with the logo. So then there was like a really big turning point in like probably like the second year of uni where you could kind of like choose to specialize in either like graphic design, illustration, or motion. And the funny thing is that even though I specialized in graphic design, I now pretty much specialize in all three of those things.
Nice. Okay. Makes sense. Super. And I noticed there's a point where you were an employee to start with. What made you change to being a freelancer?
Hmm. Quite a few things actually. I think, funnily enough, I think a lot of people jump into freelance because they like the idea of being their own boss, and that is really good. I think it comes with its own pressures that maybe people don't really understand. Like, if you're your own boss, then you also have to be very self motivated. Luckily,
Yeah.
I'm quite a self motivated person anyway, but a lot of people go in with the idea of like, oh, I'm going to be my own boss, and can do what I want when I want, and like that, yeah, there is the element of that. But people forget that, like, obviously, whenever you take a holiday, like, you're not getting paid for those holidays and things like that. But kind of going back to your question of why it made me want to jump into it, most people's reasons, I think, are just to be your own boss, whereas mine was just because I was kind of sick of being behind the computer all the time. I really was like, I was missing that kind of like human interaction that I kind of feed off. I'm a very extrovert person, so I very much like I feed off like other people's energy and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So when I was like kind of working on designs and stuff like that at the agencies or even in house, there was never any real huge problems with the businesses. It was just the case that I was just getting a bit itchy just being behind the desk, behind the computer all day. Like,
Yeah.
someone would come in with a brief and I'd have these questions about the brief, for example. I'd be like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And it'd always be a case of like, oh, we've got to go check this, or oh, we've got to go to client. And it always frustrated me because I was like, oh, well, I could just do that. I could just email and say, hey, do you want to just, what do you think about this? What do you think I do that? And that was kind of the main point. And then luckily, ever since going freelance, like I've had a real nice mix of, I'd say, like a lot of the human interaction, obviously, but then I'm still doing design work. It's a nice sort of like through process where I'm like really starting with the core meetings of people that I feed
Yeah.
off, and I can go away and do the work for them, which is like just something I absolutely adore. That was kind of the real main reason, to be honest. Not to like initially anyway, not to build anything big or anything other than just loving meeting people really and working directly with them.
That makes sense. So what is it like for you on a day-to-day basis now compared to when you were an employee?
So when I was an employee, obviously, like, I mean, that might have changed for a lot of people now because I went self-employed in the middle of lockdown, which was quite
Yeah.
wild. Much to do, like, a lot of people were like, "You're mad for doing this." Like the first month of lockdown, I was like, "I'm just gonna go for it. Why not?" But yeah, so I guess a normal agency day or normal just working days, like for most people, is like you'd come in and start at like say like 9 o'clock and then finish at 5:30, and you'd come in maybe do like a little roundup of what the work you have to do for the day in the morning, and then basically just sit behind a laptop, headphones in, pretty much working through the day. And yeah, now I have a real nice mix of like what I try to do is get all my meetings in the morning because I quite like to get like stuck into something. So if I had like sporadic meetings, I can't get stuck into something. So I try now to have like a few meetings in the morning. So I'll be like talking to a client about a new project, talking through some amends or updates, anything, or even just meeting someone. There might not even be like a work thing to it. It's just that someone messages me or I message them and say, hey, should we, grab a virtual coffee or real life coffee? And then
Yeah.
from there, I'll probably grab some lunch, and then I just dive straight in then to whatever projects I've got on that day. And I've also I've always been quite like an organized person with these things. Like I think I've been writing to-do lists ever since I was like probably about 7. So every day I've got like a to-do list and a Trello board that's always up to date. So yeah, I kind of manage all that. And yeah, I suppose that's something that's not really talked about a lot is how much as a freelancer and someone who runs their own business, you have to wear a lot of hats as well, which can also fill up your day. Because, whereas back in the agency like times, I was just focused on the design. So I'd get in, I'd have that meeting. There wouldn't really be many emails I'd be responding to because it would just purely be the design work. Whereas now I'm juggling the sort of emails, client comms, my own social media. Like there's a few things to juggle, but I kind of like that though. To be
You
fair.
enjoy it, don't you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, look, I absolutely thrive off it. Like, oh, nothing more. I mean, there's been a few days now, like over the past few months, where I don't think I've opened InDesign or Illustrator or any creative software for work. I'm like, and that I always get to the end of those days and I'm like, I haven't actually done design work today, but I've done a lot of work. And that's always like a bit of a you feel guilty because you're like, oh, I've just been responding to emails or going on calls, but then that is still work.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and talk to me about design wellness, how that came about.
Yeah, so Design Wellness is a partnership between myself, James Bosniak, and Graham Cooper, who we all kind of came together. Well, actually, they came together first and created Design Wellness. It's basically a website and branding company for therapists, really affordable prices. The idea is to just help people within that space. I came on board think maybe 2018, 2019. I can't really remember off the top of my head. I jumped in because I did the branding for them. And then off the back of that branding, I just got more involved with more projects with them. And then from there, I kind of joined the team officially as the creative director.
Nice. And what was in it for you when you joined? What was it that you wanted to get involved in?
Well, mental health, to be honest. That was the real key thing. I loved the idea of helping people, much as I do now. I talk about getting to talking directly to clients and stuff like that. But one of the things that I love talking to them about is finding key problems within their business and trying to solve that and help them help them to grow and just to thrive, really.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at. That's what really drew me in about Design Wellness, because there's a lot of therapists who naturally, completely fairly don't have the experience in creating websites and branding, and they can go on Fiverr.com or they can go and get templated websites, but nothing that's really custom towards them. So the idea of doing something like that was really interesting to me. And we've got a lot of great clients that we talk to a lot. They're really lovely people. They support us on everything we do. We also, a lot of the clients as well that we have, try and get to the design recovery event we've run as well. So Design Recovery is a mental health networking event that we've created with the idea of it being a safe space to speak openly about mental health, because we just didn't. This is back in before the pandemic. It was kind of, mental health was still a bit of a bit of a buzzword back then. It was only just started to really pick up, and especially in the creative industries and just any industry really, there wasn't a lot of talk about mental health in the workplace, things like that. That's obviously changed now because of COVID, and people are a bit more in tune with it. But yeah, it all kind of ties together, really.
Yeah. Okay. With that being said, do you think there's do you have any advice for anyone who's a freelancer who maybe is more introverted and struggles with mental health, for example, if they've not got that social interaction? Is that a common thing?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a lot of freelancers that feel that way, and I think it is a really tough thing. I've been to a few networking events now and stuff where you can see people are trying to put themselves in a situation they're not very comfortable with, just because they need to make connections and meet people, and that can be really tough. But I think one of my best bits of advice for something like that is just trying to find a way that works for you. Like, for example, if the idea of going into a big group of people on your own is a little bit scary, then maybe see about bringing a friend or two to go along with. That way, even if you don't talk to anyone, you're still there, your face is shown, and you've still got like friends you can talk to, or even like a work colleague. If you're thinking of jumping into freelance, you've not done that yet, and you want to get involved with the design network and space, then that's the way to do it as well. And obviously, anyone listening to this, if you go into a networking event and I'm there, hit me up beforehand. I'll happily sit down and chat with you. But other than that, I'd say even the idea of a group is a little bit intimidating. Zoom could be a really good way to do it. I think I've been on a Zoom with someone who, I don't know if they were introverted, but I gathered that they were, just because they didn't have the picture up on the screen for Zoom, and just the voice, and that's fine too. They wanted to catch up and talk, and it was no bother to me, and it's whatever worked for you. You've got to play to your strengths, I think, with these sort of things, and just go what feels right. And it's good to get out of your comfort zone, don't get me wrong, but do it in a way that isn't going to be like an awful experience for you, essentially.
Okay, makes sense. Super. On your bio description about yourself, you say that you design things with people in mind, like very like your audience in mind. How important do you think it is to like get a feel for who your audience is?
I think now more so than ever, I think a lot of businesses and things like that are really kind of data driven on the fact of their audience. So they're using their audience to really push and navigate how their business moves. So more so now than ever, really. I mean, you only need to look at, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone mentioned about how with customer testimonials and stuff, right? Normally use that as like a marketing front. So you might put, so let's say I'm a DJ business, and someone came to one of my nights and was absolutely loving it, and I got a really good testimonial, and I would put that on my social media for everyone else to see, right? Well, what if actually I flip that round and I have a meeting and sit with everyone who's part of this team and actually put those testimonials on wall, and what can happen from that? It's like there was that thing recently, wasn't there, about I think the Harvard Business School. Yeah, they did a test recently whereby they had chefs working in a canteen making food. And then on the flip side of that, you had obviously the people eating the food, and by just showing the chefs in a video of the people eating the food quality went up. So I guess what I'm saying is that knowing how your audience are moving and reacting, and actually getting to the point where you're really intertwined with that audience and the people that are behind the business, kind of demysting it all really, is critical, because not only will it help employees internally do better, but if internally employees are doing better because your customers are happy, then they just feed off each other then, and hopefully your business will thrive because of that.
Do you find that easy to do, like personally?
What, as in connecting with an audience?
Or,
as in through my own work, or with clients and their work?
Yeah, everything in general.
With everything. Well, I think that's a good question, actually, because for me personally, I struggle. I don't struggle to connect to an audience. I struggle with like a lot of illustrators and designers. Basically, they will create a style or create some sort of illustrator, like some sort of kind of a visual like style. I think that's the best way to say it. Like whether that's branding or something like that, and they will kind of consistently post that sort of stuff, and the audience then connects to that style and really likes that style. And I've always struggled with that, only because like there's definitely styles I could just stick to, and just for purely for connecting with people on social media that I could stick to and go to. But I've always been a bit of a jack of all trades, and I love just experimenting and trying different things. So I think my audience, the way they connect with me is that whenever I put something out there, it's me experimenting with different things and trying to connect with them and say, hey, this is something else I can do, rather than that this is the thing I can do that you've seen I can do 100 times. Here's something else I can do. Here's something else. So I'm connecting with people in a way that's like, I'm aiming to connect with new people rather than connect directly with an audience that I've already got. Does that kind of make sense?
It's sort of
I
like a
connect.
marketing perspective, isn't it? Like, here's what I can do. It's not just this; it's everything else as well.
Exactly. It's essentially like, imagine, say Jackson Pollock, like, and it's all those paint splatters, right? And he would do loads and loads of those. And his audience come because they love this kind of thing, right? Whereas I'm kind of trying to position myself more that I'm showing this is the massive amount of stuff I can do, because I love experimenting, trying new things, and really mastering lots of different crafts rather than just one. And then the way I know that I connect with an audience is that the people who like my work, then when they see that I posted something new, most of the time, like I had someone, I've started posting up 3D work, for example, and someone who's been following me for a long time, finally just dropped a message, was like, this 3D work is really cool. What about maybe potentially putting you on this project? So I'm connecting. So that wouldn't have happened before had I not put the 3D work out. Do you see what I'm kind of saying? By having like lots of different styles of stuff, and having a wide range, I'm connecting with an audience in a different way. Whereas when I'm working with my clients and businesses, they've got a message, they've got a style that they want to work with, and they've got a business that they want to work with, and they've normally got a demographic that they want to hit, or working with them, we'll figure out their demographic together and hit that. And essentially then what we'll do is we'll work together, creating personas and things like that, figure out what behind the screen, who is this person you're trying to connect to as a business, right? Like we said, in my case, I'm just wanting to connect with everyone, really. Whereas as a business, you probably want to connect to certain people, right? So we work with them to try and figure out who this person is, build a sort of persona, build almost like an image of who this person is, right? What do they like? What's the kind of hobbies, things like that. Try and build that picture, and then we can try and figure out ways of like connecting with them. So I'm trying to think of an example now. Like, let's say a streaming service, right? We've got a new show coming out, and we want to connect, and this show is aimed towards the younger demographic. So we're saying like maybe early 20s, let's say our age, right?
Yeah.
And it's a new show. Let's call it like, it's almost like Skins. Let's say it's like Skins, right? So how do we connect with that audience, right? So we know that most of our demographic are on, obviously, like Instagram, quite a lot on TikTok now. There's a little bit on Twitter and a little bit on LinkedIn, but it's not huge there. So we're going to focus predominantly on those two things. Now, we know those two platforms register really well with video. So we're going to try and create some sort of animation or, motion graphic piece. Like, we work with a lot of like videographer freelancers. So we could bring in that sort of talent and create something like that. And then essentially we've got our audience now. We've got kind of a mode of transport to get them there. And then we need to now figure out where we want them to go. So we want them to land on the website and watch the TV show, right?
True.
So then we're going to create a campaign that ticks all the boxes of what this person should like, right? So we're pretty much aiming directly at this person, like almost like a bow and arrow, ready to go.
Yeah.
Right? And then essentially we just shoot that bow and we hit. And, provided that we've got everything right in the persona, the market research is there, all the research and data is there, it should be an easy funnel for them to just go through and try out the show.
True. That makes perfect sense, to be fair. What would it look like matching someone's personality and a persona when you put personality into your design? What does it look like in terms of colors and shapes and fonts? How could you explain that in words? Is it possible to explain?
Well, it's quite a visual thing, but you can really. So colors is a good one. So let's say, I'll throw this question back to you, actually. Okay. So let's say we're talking to someone who is let's say a rugby player, right? So I say rugby player to you, you've got a picture in your head immediately. And what's that picture?
Someone playing rugby in the rugby kit.
Yeah, in the rugby kit. They're quite big and strong.
Yeah, well. The persona is quite a big, weighty person. Yeah, exactly.
They probably lift and go to the gym, or quite into that stuff. They probably quite they might like lots of food and things like that, burgers, things like that. And if I said to you, based on that knowledge just alone, without knowing anything else, this is just without us doing any research at all. Yeah. What kind of color do you think that kind of person might like?
Difficult on this. Red comes to mind for some reason.
I would say the same, because red is quite an aggressive color, quite sports related as well. There's a lot of like rugby teams that focus on red as well. So already without us doing any research, we've kind of got an idea. And if I asked you what kind of fonts they like, you'd probably say something quite like a sporty font, maybe something that's quite bold.
Yeah, bold. Yeah, exactly. Capital letters. Yeah.
So you're already building that thing. So we're already building without us touching. I mean, I've not touched anything on this computer. We're just talking now, but you can already start to picture how you position a poster for that person, wouldn't you?
True. Interesting that.
Yeah, you already can think about how that would look and how that would work, and you can already probably think a bit like we were talking then about this the sort of the skins thing, as it were, like how would connect. So how would we connect with that person? Where's the platform that we connect with? Probably wouldn't well, we might say Instagram, but we are a lot of these rugby people active on Instagram? Maybe they're more active on something like YouTube, because YouTube has got a lot of like rugby highlights, things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe TikTok, potentially more TikTok for that sort of stuff. So Instagram might not be as strong for them. So we could look at those two channels as a stronger platform to engage them with. And then obviously there's also looking at maybe what teams that our demographic might like. We could do some Google paid ads towards that thing. There's a lot of, it's how then you navigate through that using the information you've got. And then it's directly targeted then, isn't it? So you're hitting, you've got that arrow there ready to go. And that's me and you just talking now without doing any research. So like when we do all our research and back it all up, it's even more accurate.
That makes sense. Yeah, super. Yeah, exactly. Moving on now into your clients. So I believe in more recent years you've worked with quite big clients like Kellogg's and AO. What's it like working as a designer for such a big brand like that?
You know what? It's strange. It's strange in the fact that like Kellogg's, for example, used to be quite intimidating. I think Kellogg's was actually the first freelance project I got. Back when I was working at an agency, I was working a company called Ahoy. I got in touch with and did some illustrations for them, and I was kind of doing that outside of work. And it was amazing, like such a collaborative process. That's kind of what made me fall in love with the freelance thing, because I remember having like calls after work with them and just being so buzzed off it. And initially it was really sort of intimidating and stuff like that. But and it kind of links back to the whole when you're first starting out, like even when you meet like, say, I don't know, someone famous or something like that, you're kind of like, oh my God, they're so big, they're so, but actually when you learn to like sort of humanize them a little bit, and you just realize that it's a company, it's a huge company, but it's a company with people behind it, and it's actually those people you want to connect with and things like that, that it kind of demystifies it a little bit and makes it less scary.
Yeah.
When you stop thinking of, I'm working with Kellogg's, the massive global corporation, whatever, and actually start to think, I'm working with this unique marketing team within Kellogg's, to produce some great illustrations that are really going to hit everything that they want. And it shrinks it down a little bit, makes it more like, tangible and like workable. And then when you think that you're just working with a team that's within Kellogg's, even that's still huge and still amazing, it just doesn't make it feel as scary. And you've still got the excitement there and everything like that. But like kind of like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? What I mean?
That makes sense. Do you prefer working with bigger clients or smaller clients, like maybe a one-man band startup? What do you prefer doing?
That's a good one. That's a very good question. I've toyed with this a lot, actually. When I first went freelance, I did work with a few big clients, and they were really good. As with the small ones, I would say my happy ground is the medium. It is a startup, but it's like a startup that's quite established. Like currently, we've just pitched for a startup who are quite well established, who are looking to kind of branch out further and go across the globe and stuff like that. And that's where it's kind of really good. Like I like that, because that's where I feel like I'm really helping. You know what I mean? Like even though with like someone like Kellogg's would do this illustration, it's really good for them internally and across the channels and stuff like that. That really works for them. There's something really satisfying about like working directly with a company and helping them to move. Like I did one recently. I rebranded my old agency Techmark, which was like an incredible job to do. Like it was my first job out of uni, so then being asked like all these years later to come back and rebrand them was just like a dream. And it was nice to like sit with them and like reposition everything, work with the team, because one thing that we're quite passionate about is kind of ingraining ourselves in those teams. So that's harder to do with like the giant corporations, but it's much more achievable with like a small business or a small to medium sized business, because that's where we're happiest. We love to we want to be part of that team. We want to ingrain ourselves. We want to effectively be your marketing department, really. And that's where I'm happiest, really. Like with TechMart, we would just go in for meetings with them. We effectively acted as their design team, helping them craft this new identity that then, since then, like, it's done them really well. There's nothing quite as satisfying as seeing on LinkedIn that when their company has changed the logo and things like that. And underneath, it's like, wow, this is really cool, and this is so fresh, and and it's hitting those notes that we were hoping it would hit. Hoping due to our research and stuff. And that's kind of where we love. That's where I love to be, really. These small to medium, I'd say.
That makes sense. And obviously, with a startup or any business, you need design, you need graphics, but more specifically for a tech startup, you need UX design, branding, logos, things like that. That nowadays are they're essential, aren't they? Have you ever considered making your own startup and using your skills to help you?
I suppose I do work with Design Wellness, which is effectively a startup. But then outside of that, I work with them as they were my client, because I think, again, I've not talked to you in a while, but I'm actually launched my own business studio as a collective with James and Graham from Design Wellness under the alias of Studio Anti-Gravity. We're currently doing everything up and getting the branding up and website up. So it's all kind of quite early days at the moment. Like I was at a networking event yesterday, and they're like, "Do you have a business card?" I was like, "Not yet, but we're on our way there." So no, I'd say no, not right now, especially because Design Wellness is kind of the focus there. But also I've got to focus on building Anti-Gravity really right now.
Perfect. What are your thoughts on the future of blockchain and the future of design, and as a graphic designer, what's your view on that?
Well, as you know, I'm really into all that sort of stuff. I've done a lot of research. It's kind of like before Christmas last year. I'd obviously been following NFTs and blockchain and crypto, but it was kind of like over Christmas last year that I just kind of like dived into the world, and it was just amazing. Like, there's just so much creative stuff you can do within there. We're like currently as a studio, both James and Graham are looking into Web3 and things like that, so we can learn the capabilities to offer that to clients as well. And I've created my own NFTs already. And bought them as well, and even the community aspect is just brilliant. There's a lot of grinding within the NFT kind of like community space, but I'm hoping that's kind of starting to shift a little bit. But I mean, I heard the other day that I think if you've got a Bored Ape, you can buy a house on this island, and that house is also an NFT.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy. I saw Gary Vee actually. He mentioned about how he was going to basically make, he said, "Why don't your invoices become NFTs?" And I was like, well, yeah, that's mine. I suppose there could be, like, anything can be an NFT, and it's just figuring out a way to use that in a way that's like really, makes sense, essentially.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose if you were to make your own NFTs, you've got the design capabilities. It's just a case of, the reason why someone will buy an NFT now is for like a future, like in the future, isn't it? Like an investment.
Yeah.
I suppose alongside that, you'd have to market it and prove to people, look, I'm going to keep on marketing it in the future. So
yeah, you have to have like a good roadmap and build a community around it. Like, we're looking into building an NFT project ourselves, because we've got we're very passionate about mental health, and we can see a real way of connecting NFTs and mental health together in a really positive way. So we're looking into that at the moment. And like I say, I've been on enough projects now for the NFT space. Like, basically for months, I've been looking at the projects. It's only really at Christmas I dived in, but I've been victim to rug pull projects myself, where the roadmap's there and all that's good, and then the rug gets pulled on you. But equally so, I've been a part of really good projects. Like, I'm currently on the Jeremy Booth's got a project called the Ronin, which are just absolutely amazing. They had this amazing event, mate, where they basically, you had like your Ronin mask and the Ronin sword, right? And if you had both of them, you'd go to this burn event where you burn both of them, and then it generates an actual soldier for you, like a warrior for you, which is like completely
cool.
custom to you. Which is just like wild. Like that technology is insane that you can just take, and it would take the sword as well and put the sword on the back of him, and like crazy tech. So it's just like, and I also think there's a lot, and I think I'd say this to any sort of like marketing agency or any agency or someone in marketing to really look at what the NFT and crypto space is doing for marketing, because they are thinking crazily outside the box. They're building a community, and I think for businesses in general now, like we've got to stop looking at customers as customers and start to try and build a community, a loyal fan base of people who are going to come back for more. It's essentially what it's like a YouTuber. They've got a fan base that comes back and buys the merch and buys into them. This is what maybe brands need to start looking into, and that's where NFTs can be that like kind of that branch between the two. That's certainly where I see it anyway. There's just, oh god, mate, there's just so much potential there. Imagine like a company that launches I know a lot of football clubs and stuff like that are now launching their own NFTs, for example, their own cryptocurrency, and that's just a way to give back to the fans. And then you've got these fans then who are essentially bought a bit of the company, a bit of the football team. Like they just, even though getting merch is great, but you've then got this thing that can then go up in rarity. Like maybe if the team does really well in the league, this could be how it goes in the future. I think for football is let's say every football team has got their own cryptocurrency and NFTs, right? And let's say that there's a team that's not really well heard of, like there was like Leicester a few years ago, right? Let's say they win the league, right? Imagine how much the crypto value of those coins would go up by. If it was a team that no one had heard of, who then got to the top of the team, was making all the headlines, those NFTs and crypto value would go up. So actually, it's rewarding the fans for being loyal, like financially, isn't it? So there's things like that you could look into and kind of bring into your own business, really. Because I mean, this is it. Like links back to all the things we're talking about with wanting to work with people and stuff like that, and build a community. Like I'm certainly, even though when we talk about target audiences and stuff, I love experimenting and trying different things and stuff. Like, even though I've still got a community, do you know what I mean? I've not got like a target audience I'm hitting. I've got a community of people who kind of consistently like those posts, even though they're different every time. And people that like message me and things like that. Like it's still about building a community. And that's what the NFT space just does really well.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard as well, the amount of different things you can put as an NFT, like music, you can put like, you do a lot of 3D stuff now, you could even have that as an NFT. And companies, equity in companies, because it's on the blockchain, everyone knows.
Yeah, 100%. That's it. That's it. It's people forget that like crypto and stuff is effectively really, it's like stock markets. It works very similarly in that the coins go up and down and things like that. And there's nothing stopping people getting more involved with these things. And you only need to look at places like Adidas and Puma are now involved. There's even like I've recently bought my own Ethereum domain name because those are hot cakes. So it's like antigravity.eth I own now, because in years' time they'll just be as big as websites, There's just so much within that, and I think it's just still very untapped. It's still very raw. People don't really understand it. That's why I pretty much encourage everyone. There's a lot of things about people being a bit ridiculous with it and putting thousands into it, which I'd kind of I would say maybe don't unless you want to. I'd kind of avoid, because it is a volatile kind of industry in that sense. It can go up and down. I don't know if you watched that Netflix thing about it was like the crypto hunter.
Not seen that yet. I'll have to watch.
No, it's really good. It's really well. That was about the Bitcoin crash. So loads of people lost hundreds of thousands of pounds because the Bitcoin just crashed.
Wow.
So so it's very volatile, right? So, but I then actively encourage friends and stuff like that and family to just get like 50 quid in Ethereum or something. Just because you never know. Because the way I see it, either it'll jump up to thousands and you've made loads of money or whatever. Or even if it jumps up to 100 quid, you've made 50 quid, or you lose 50 quid. but the potential advantage is massively outweighs the risk.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. What's your next NFT purchase, do you think?
Oh, well, that's the thing, right? There is loads, right? I mean, God knows I wanted one of those invisible friends, for example, but they were like 11 grand, and I just like, I just can't. Especially because they have a roadmap, but it's not very like definitively clear at the moment. Invisible friends could certainly release like a coin or whatever, a bit like Bored Ape did, and just make people very rich from that. But it's just the risk there. And I was looking into Gen Zs, where run by, I think it's called Alex DMZ. He's an artist I've followed for ages. I'm a big fan of his. But again, they're like about 300 a pop. So so I can't. That's the thing. I can't really bring myself to at the moment. But I have just bought. I say just bought. I bought a Newman NFT piece maybe a month or two ago, and that allows access to the Manchester's Finest NFT Supper Club. So they do. So Manchester's Finest are running a supper club with where essentially go in, and I think everyone's paid in Ethereum, which is really cool. And because I'm really keen to meet more people within the NFT and Web3 space, just because I'm as you can tell now, I'm just really passionate about it. I'm going to go to a coffee meetup with a few people in the crypto space, which obviously you're welcome to come to as well. Which is I think it's on maybe a Wednesday or I can't remember. I'll send you the details afterwards. But and maybe put it in the bottom of this podcast. To be fair, if anyone else wants to listen in, wants to come, more than welcome. Essentially, so it's just such a huge industry that's growing at the moment. It's just crazy, and I think you have to jump on it now and be quick and jump on it now. Otherwise, you could miss the boat a little bit. But I have a feeling there's been a lot of flutters of talks about an NFT winter, because there are so many projects out there right now.
Like a bubble, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, and I think as well, it's really hard to tell you have to do a bit of research and know where to look on Rarity Sniffer and things like that to know what's good to look at and what's not. But there's a talk about NFT winter coming where things are going to kind of crash a little bit. Whether I think that happens or not, I'm not sure. But do I think the hype is going to die down a little bit for a little bit? I think it will. It's riding high still at the moment now, but it's certainly going to start to quiet a little bit. And that's why it's important, if you can get a project out or with a good plan and things like that, then you should definitely do it. We're looking into launching our project that's kind of ties into mental health. I just need to kind of finish my 3D stuff, and I want to make it in 3D. I tried to do it and I've tried a few times to create it in 2D, and it just didn't feel right for what I was after. So we want to try and get that pumping out and start to connect with people on that. Essentially, we want to create something that has a lot of help and benefits for the mental health space if you should invest in it. So watch this space for that, really.
Sounds good. Brilliant. Well, I knew we'd end up talking about NFTs eventually in the blockchain. Just can't resist it. But thanks for coming on. No
worries.
Been really good chatting. So see you later.
Thank you, mate. Take care, man.
No worries.
Bye.